of established righteousness. We're continuing in section 1, the concept and practice of righteousness. The header reads, men of Abarah, or the order of Melchizedek, and women after the order of Zedeqetelebab, and the process of community in acknowledging them. Let's begin. For many years, we have followed that which is outlined in the first part of chapter 11, particularly verses 2 through 39, in the book of remembrance of Enoch, in regard to the description of the men's orders of service, and we have followed this guidance carefully with its concept of authority, and it has always been right to follow the orders of service as it has been written. All throughout the volumes of the book of remembrance, women have been given a prominence that has been more pronounced than what some people in Christianity have expected. And now, with the information that we received by Urim in Melchizedek and the little book of John the Revelator, all of the expressions of how women function in the religion of Shabuah is coming together. The new understanding came when we witnessed the actual ceremony where Melchizedek and Zedeqetelebab established Shabuah. The Lord, for the first time, with his own words, clarified the holy order of the priesthood and much of how it functions, both on earth and in heaven. But to summarize it here, this is what we learned. In heaven, what has been called the high priesthood is simply called the holy order, and there is only one priesthood, both in heaven and on earth. In the book of remembrance of Melchizedek, there is an account of when the Lord named Shem Michael, which is Shem's name in his function in heaven. Shem is called Melchizedek when he functions in the holy order on the temporal earth. His family called him Shem to hide his anticipated function as Melchizedek, which is the name the Urkadeshi call him. But Motsa named him Michael out of the anticipation of his function in heaven. One of the surprising new things that came to us was to find that the name that his wife was called by her family was Shum, which is the feminine form of Shem, as you will find reading Melchizedek because of the teachings of Shem's grandfather Rak. She was named Shum to hide her name, Zedeqetelebab, in the same manner as her future husband, and to again increase the parallel, the Lord in a similar way named Shum Gieta, which means archangel. I was even more surprised to see her looking with the Urim, which up to that time we were unaware of any women ever doing that. At that point, I just stopped looking with Urim and simply said, "It's done," and abruptly quit. The scribes had never seen me do that before, and they said, "What did you see?" just as you were ending, and I had not indicated anything to them. So I said, "I saw Shum looking with Urim, with her husband putting it on her." Then they all did not want to stop. My habit with the Urim is that when I see something that I don't understand, then I say nothing about it. But if I saw something startling, then I would stop. My respect for the Urim is such that I will not say anything that I don't understand nor proceed until the Lord is able to help me know what and why he is showing me. So I went ahead and I began to see the difference between what Shem was seeing with Enoch's Urim and what his wife was seeing, and the difference was at once very profound and extremely comforting. And it is explained in Melchizedek, chapter 12, verse 35 through 36. Then we saw that in the midst of the very first Shabuah ceremony, a man came up from the back to the altar. It turned out to be the Lord himself. He came to establish the two parts of the holy order upon the earth. The first was the order of Melchizedek, and he explained its function fully. Then he said the holy order upon the earth has two parts that arise out of the sanctity of marriage. That second part is the order of Zedeqetelebab, and he explains somewhat of the function of this second part. All of this was very surprising to us. It is now known that before Shabuah was established on the earth, the order of Melchizedek was called the men of Abarah, but afterwards it became known as the order of Melchizedek. Come to find out, this very thing had been prophesied during the time of Enoch, divided the sons of men, right after he receives the famous marriage council. And with this, things started to come together, and we could see that right from the beginning, this information and view of priesthood was expressed in the volumes of the books of remembrance. There's clear indication back in the first book of Achi, chapter 1, verse 81, and the book of remembrance of Enoch in chapter 11, verse 37, also indicates a strong connection a wife has to the order of Melchizedek. At this point, this is all too new for us to understand it all yet, but we will proceed as we are led to process this information. One of the things that was interesting was that I saw Shum wearing a leather worship garment different than I had seen before. Then I remembered that I saw Tifera wearing the same kind back in Achi. It is certainly an identifiable garment to indicate this order for women. The reading in the book of remembrance of Melchizedek has vital information about what is called the order of Zedeqetelebab and an outline of how they function. This information has been and continues to be hidden by cultural biases against women expressing in many ways a spiritual role. So this order of designation for women will be developing its expression in our day. This woman's order is very comforting and exciting because it is directed at angelic protections for the righteous, especially during the tribulation times. Melchizedek says these women protect, nourish, and strengthen, which reflects the focus of the three women's clans. This woman's order is a form of ministry unlike anything men have had throughout history. To call it priesthood would bring an unnecessary debate, and its protective function is too important to dismiss. Shem and Shum were named at their births, Melchizedek and Zedeqetelebab, but they both got their Anokased names when the Lord came to them separately in their sleep, and he touched them and gave them names indicating they were both archangels. He named Shem Michael and Shum Gietta. These names point to their roles of ministry as Anokased's angels in heaven. We can interact with them, each in their own individual function. We can call upon Michael to help us and the Lord with the Urkadeshi over whom he has charge, and we can call upon Gietta to bring us help and protection with the abiding angels over whom she has charge. And this help will be experienced to be of central importance for the righteous, especially during the tribulation times. This new light from Melchizedek on a woman's role in the holy order was indicated early in Achi. First Achi, chapter 1, verse 81 says, "And it came to pass that it was in the first year of the building of the great tower that Achi took Tifera to wife, and they together dwelt among the Urkadeshi, and she was with him in all his doings, and she was strong of spirit, for she feared not the wicked, but walked before the Lord with her husband continually, like unto her grandmother Zedeqetelebab. And she was a woman of faith, and she was righteous, for she loved the Lord and the Urkadeshi, and she girded herself about with skins like unto her husband." You will note in this reading that I saw the same woman's worship garment that I saw Zedeqetelebab wearing in Melchizedek chapter 12. This chapter is important to study in relation to this topic. It was wrapped around the middle with a wide band going over the left shoulder, the power shoulder. This indicates that all women of this order should wear this kind of worship garment when performing their tasks before the altar. as it was in the ancient times with Enoch and other men of the order of Abarah. We find that men after this order, by nature of the intensity of their service, must have to go through a period of praying and fasting for 40 days, so the Lord can give them guidance that will define the specific nature of their ministry. I fasted 22 days of my 40 days. The longest period was 7 days in a row. When a man is called to this order, the potential for good is magnified for all people. Likewise, the potential for discord and harm is also magnified if ego and pride are in play in their ministry. The order of Abarah became known as the order of Melchizedek after the flood, with the establishment of Shabuah and the establishment of the foundations of the prophetic function. Even Christ did his 40 days in regards to God helping him shape his ministry. So did Elijah, Ezekiel, John the Baptist, Enoch on Mount Mahujah, and others. So a righteous community must have some safeguards in place to see that only real expressions of this order of service are present among them. I don't think a righteous community could survive this order of service gone wrong. Remember, now, this is not a hierarchy. It is just the sum of all the other orders of service put together. These are the safeguards. The question before the community is this: do you decide a man can do 40 days or a woman can do 22 days in order to seek a sure affirmation of his calling or a designation for her to this order? First, you are determining a huge thing. You need to hear the Lord and say clearly what is on your mind to tell others about it. Be honest and real. This is God's thing, and we have to flow into what he is doing. For a community recognizing the holy order, the nature of that order of service often defines the community. Let's talk about some guidelines in deciding if an individual should be affirmed to do these days. 1. There can be no pressure to act, no agenda, and no status or hierarchy or acceptance issues or competition. 2. This issue should not be a surprise. Some few people should feel it ahead of time. 3. It is best if this person has lived in an established community for at least 7 years. New communities should not rush into having people of this order. The Lord can take care of you because he knows how. He can be your man of Abarah if he needs to be. Note, I waited 24 years before I did my 40 days, but the time is too short now for people to not respond to what the Lord is telling them. So for new communities, we would recommend that any candidate for doing days for the holy order be at least spiritually well into their 3rd or 4th Omer in their behavior before the Lord. See the community rule for specifics. 4. They should be the type of person whose communication does not restrict the common consent process, especially in relation to what the Lord is saying or telling them. Communication should always invite others to feel the experience too. Language encourages others to use their own words and express freely the feeling in their own way. However, communication should not be vague. 5. Counsel should thoroughly examine the individual's skills in repentance and receiving reproval. 6. When an individual is doing days for the holy order and they have a language of repentance, be certain that the language is in relation to the days. Languages should be clear and never about someone else. No speculation. 7. The council needs to be comfortable with a person's relationships in community. They should openly show compassion, not be a hermit or have relationship problems. 8. They must be on the council or numbered among the elders if there is no council. 9. Their private life must also reflect this calling: parenting, relationship with their spouse, etc. There should not be any public versus private matters. No one who has tendencies to be secretive should be considered for doing days for the holy order. 10. The person needs to have a clear and specific reason why they need to do days, a goal/purpose. Just what do they need to get out of it? 11. The person should have gone through the process to get a prayer censer. Would council want this person to have a blessed censer? Are we comfortable with their use of element? 12. No one on the council can have any unspoken concerns. If a decision is made and anyone doesn't feel right about it, later then the council must meet and reconsider the matter. Approving a person to do days is the result of a long process. The person then has to go to work it out with God, and it could go either way during the days. The service of Abarah is not a sure thing. The Lord could say, go or not. Then, based on the light received during the days and shared with the council, we have a whole new decision to make with regard to their service. A holy order censer is different from the others in that it is instructed during the days, so that it is ready to go to work for others when it is blessed. This is for the Lord. These censers function for him. At the recognition ceremony, the pipe gets blessed after they have shared their vision with the council. We like all of our men of service to have censers, but for the holy order, it is required because often they are circle drawers and conduct holy days. One time, before we had this process in place, a man did 40 days, and during the whole time, he got no light from the Lord. When it's real, we all know it. The wives of the men of Abarah must also have a revelatory experience, and they must do 3 periods of 7 days each, plus an extra 1 day alone with the Lord to get light on their ministry and vision of created purpose. They could choose to do it all in one block. This also must be shared with the council of the community, and they must be approved by the council to do their 22 days using the same criteria as their husbands. There are cases in the scriptures of women who have come into this order who had wayward husbands. Baraka and Iona are examples. The order of worship for the recognition ceremony for a woman of Zedeqetelebab is the same as for the men of Melchizedek. Only she sits on the sheepskin and wears a crown of bulrushes with her sacred bundle and walking stick beside her and her hair down. The Lord will lead if the recognition ceremonies for a man of Abarah and his wife should be conducted separately or together. This concludes our reading on the men of Abarah, or the order of Melchizedek, and women after the order of Zedeqetelebab, and the process of community in acknowledging them. Thank you for listening. Shalom.